You're with us here this Tuesday morning on a fresh new edition of Trading Hour. The market is up about 30 points. So it kind of sort of continues to float higher. Essentially like what we saw yesterday. But I mean, there's a bit of this and a bit of that. There is no real big underlying trend still visible or clear evidence that the market is maybe finished its corrective phase and it wants to move sharply higher.Maybe we will see that in the hours to come. But so far, we've not really seen that. We were up almost 50 points about 30, 35, 40 minutes ago, and we're already off the highs. So let's see how much more this can do. The Nifty Bank is up about 0.25%. Global cues overnight were not very much to talk about. They were mostly flattish. The one big headline, I think, not new, but what has continued to happen is that yields across the board are going lower and lower as expectations that the Fed will cut becomes stronger. So, that has kept global markets afloat. But even there, on a single day, overnight, there wasn't very much to really take off from. So 31 on the Nifty right now. There are enough stocks to keep us busy. Of course, earnings season also underway. Some already sort of in the bag, some in front of us. So we'll talk about all of those things in the next 60 minutes. With me, my colleague Ekta. Hi, Ekta.
Hi, Prashant. Yes, absolutely. So it's overall, we're, just about trending above 11,600. So that's just about the steadiness that we have for our markets. You mentioned a lot of stocks in focus. So yes, we will be discussing them over the next 60 odd minutes. We have Tata Motors as well as Ashok Leyland from the auto space, which are in focus. Yes Bank stands out because it comes out with its numbers tomorrow. So that stock is up around 2 odd %. Indiabulls Housing Finance has recovered from the fall that we saw initially on it, and something like a TCS, which is down around 1.8%. It's gone ex-dividend, but nonetheless, that stock's still declining. And we have Ashok Leyland, Dishman, a couple of these other stocks that I mentioned, which are in focus in today's trading session. So let's, without any further ado, get chatting about the technicals of the market. We have Sudarshan Sukhani with us this morning. Sudarshan, over to you. What would you recommend both in terms of Nifty levels now, as well as a strategy on stocks?
Yeah, good morning again. See, the recommendation in the morning was to go long in the Nifty, and that continues, that theme continues. You buy the Nifty, whatever we are going to get. I can't say how much of a rally we are going to see, but there is a momentum on the upside, so just be there. Keep a stop at 11,550 and be long. The same applies to the Nifty Bank. Individual stocks are offering those mixed opportunities because it's not a big rallying market, but there is some momentum. Balkrishna Industries is a buy. This was a stock in a bear market. That seems to have come to an end. It's now building a base, consolidating, giving us signs of accumulation. So Balkrishna Industries is the first buy. The second is Engineers India. Same theme. It was in a bear market. That seems to be ending. It's consolidating, giving signs of accumulation. So go and buy. Both stocks are doing well today. And the third is a short sell, only intraday. L&T Finance. L&T Finance, we've all heard, is falling regularly. So there is some momentum on the downside. But broadly today, stay on the long side.
EIL Balkrishna Industries buys and L&T Finance sells. So that's trading recommendations from Sudarshan. We've got a viewer question. Mayank writes in, he's got 15 shares of Varroc Engineering. He's bought them, I got that right, 14,400 or maybe for 14,400. He basically wants to know whether, what's your recommendation, buy or sell Varroc?
Well, I'm not sure about 14,400.
I think he bought stock worth 14,400. Sudarshan.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, whatever his cost price is, the stock has been consistently falling day after day. It's at 52-week lows and it's making 52-week lows regularly. You don't want to be there. So sell it, switch to L&T, switch to Siemens, switch to names that you know very well. Sell and switch.
Okay, sell and switch. That's the advice coming in from Sudarshan on Varroc Engineering. We're going to leave it on that note. Sudarshan, thanks very much for joining in and giving us all of those technical calls. So for the Nifty, 11,620. But let's concentrate on a couple of stocks then. Amongst the top Nifty gainers today, in fact, for the fourth consecutive day, is Tata Motors. Sonia is here to tell us what has led to a rebound in this stock and whether or not it's sustainable, Sonia.
Oh, absolutely. In the last 4 days, the stock is up about 9%. This ever since JLR released the June retail sales numbers, which indicated a month-on-month improvement in their sales. In fact, at 47,060 units that they sold in the month of June, it is an 11% month-on-month rise. It's a rise for the second straight month. If you look at the bar chart, you'll realize that things have been picking up for 2 months. And more importantly, China, which was the biggest pain point for them, has seen a month-on-month improvement. So compared to May, the China sales have gone up by almost 23.1%. The management says that UK has also returned to growth with a sales growth of around 4.6%, and all of this is aided by higher sales of the new Range Rover Evoque, the Land Rover Discovery, the Jaguar I-Pace and the new Jaguar XE. So reacting to, of course, the pickup in sales, but we still need to see a couple of more months of an improvement before taking a conclusive stand that the worst is over.
Okay, well, Sonia, it's not only Tata Motors which is in focus. Tata Motors is higher, but Ashok Leyland is struggling today as the company has announced a plant shutdown for 9 days due to weak demand. This was announced last evening. Sonia, more details?
Well, yes, it's a 9-day production shutdown, complete production shutdown that the company has announced from 16th to 24th. Remember, before this, there was a temporary production shutdown as well that they announced from the 11th to 15th of July. And prior to that, in the month of June as well, there was a 6-day production shutdown. So it hasn't come as, a surprise to the street. Of course, what it does mean is that the slowdown is prolonged and, it could get worse. Now, Jefferies released a note this morning where they said that the biggest fear is that there could be muted pre-buying ahead of the BS6 transition. Remember, the big trigger, the only trigger, if at all, is that before the BS6 transition, there'll be a lot of pre-buying in the commercial vehicle space. But now some analysts point out that perhaps that may not be the case. In fact, what Jefferies has done is they have downgraded Eicher Motors to a hold from a buy. They've cut the target to 19,300. They remain underperform on Ashok Leyland. They've cut the target price there is 75 rupees. Not just Ashok Leyland, there's been a plant closure by Tata Motors as well at its Pantnagar plant, which manufactures commercial vehicles, on the 13th and the 22nd of July. So looks like the problems continue in the commercial vehicle space.
Okay, it's showing up across the board. Sonia, thank you very much for taking us through all of those data points. Ashok Leyland and Tata Motors specifically in focus. Okay, let's move on to pharma now. Dishman Pharma is reacting to some positive news. Data from phase 3 trials for a drug for Dishman have been positive. Ekta is here to explain. Ekta.
Well, the background of this particular piece of news is that Dishman is basically the contract manufacturer for a GSK drug, which is for ovarian cancer. Niraparib is basically the generic name of it, and Zeluja is basically the patented name for this particular drug by GSK. So now Dishman is already supplying is already a contract manufacturer for this particular drug. Now what GSK is doing is that they are studying this particular drug for another sort of condition. They're studying it for first-line maintenance therapy for ovarian cancer patients. So now that particular study has indicated in phase 3 has indicated positive data. So what that means is that there is a possibility that there could be an approval which could come through for another condition of the same drug, and Dishman would continue to be the same API supplier to GSK for this particular drug. So what this means is if they are earning 100 rupees now from the particular drug, they could probably earn 150 to 200. Some estimates are that revenues can go up by around 2x from supplying this particular drug continuing to supply the API to GSK. So that's the piece of news which is keeping Dishman up and about today.
Okay, Ekta, thank you very much. About 4% has actually moved up a little bit more while Ekta was on it. Okay, on to some earnings due today. Federal Bank and DCB will report numbers, and Abhishek is here to tell us what to expect from the two banks. Abhishek.
Well, Prashant, to begin with Federal Bank, sustaining ROA above 1% will be the key positive trigger, given the fact that for the first time in many quarters, ROA had crossed 1% level in Q4 FY19. So improvement in net interest margin will be very positive, given the fact that last quarter, the net interest margin was at 3.17% and the low cost deposit ratio was at 32.2%. So how that moves will be seen very closely. Now, the loan loan growth is coming off from the average of 24 to 25%. It is expected to come around 20% level. Given the slowdown that you see in MSME sector, the asset quality, that movement will be seen very closely. If at all the slippages come in between 250 to 300 crore, it will be positive. Anything beyond that will be negative. And the gross NPA in the previous quarter was around 2.92%. Now, our poll suggests NII growth of close to 16%, while net profit can grow at 36.5%. However, sequentially, the profit can decline by about 6%. Coming on to DCB Bank, the NII growth has been lagging the loan growth for last 6 quarters, and it is expected to continue in this quarter again. What this means is that the net interest margin of the bank has been on a declining trend because the revenue earned are far lesser than the loan growth. So, net interest margin was at 3.78% in the previous quarter. The loan growth is expected to remain strong and pick up to about 17%, given the fact that it was at 16% YOY in the previous quarter. Improvement in gross NPA will be positive, so the slippages around 100 crore will be positive. Anything beyond that will be negative. Last quarter, the gross NPA ratio was at 1.84%. Improvement in their high cost to income ratio of about 53-54% will be very positive. Our poll suggests NII growth of close to 15%, while net profit can grow at 35% YOY. Back to you.
Abhishek, thank you very much for that. Federal and DCB in focus. But since you're here, Abhishek, just a quick word on RBL and the way it is selling off. I think RBL reports numbers on Friday, right? 19th. It's down 10%. I mean, between yesterday and today is 4.5% cut. Anything out there you're picking up?
Unverified, but there are suggestions that there could be some group exposures which can be there. Now, it is totally unverified, so it won't be prudent to comment whether those groups names are correct or not, but there are some exposures. But just one thing I want to highlight is the exposure might not be much, given the fact that their net worth is small. They cannot leverage too much, but the market cap has fallen more than what one can imagine.
Wow, 10% and 576 now on RBL as we speak. So we'll keep you posted with what we pick up. L&T at Mindtree AGM. So the new promoter essentially saying support the dividend announcement by Mindtree. That is news which is coming through at this point. The stock is down 0.5% or so. At this point, it's not really doing very much. 0.65, 0.7 odd lower, and it's moving. We'll take our first break here on this show. We come back and we focus on basmati rice. That's what Manisha Gupta is going to talk to you about. We'll have Gurna Marora, Joint Managing Director of Kohinoor Foods listed company, on the other side to take you through what's happening in that space. Back in 2.
My company uses zero fresh